Welcome to Beyond the Game More Stories, the podcast where we explore the lessons sports teach us about life, leadership, adversity, and growth long after the final whistle. I'm your host, Dwayne Lightfoot Jr. On this show, we sit down with athletes, coaches, parents, and leaders just to have real conversations about the moments that shape us, the different challenges we go through, the victories, the big ones, the small ones, the setbacks that make us start over, and the experience that stay with us long after the scoreboard goes dark. All right, so let's get into today's episode of Beyond the Game More Stories. Today's guest is someone whose football journey has come full circle, from dominating on the field as a player to now shaping the next generation of athletes as a coach. A Louisville native, my hometown, he first made his name at Louisville Male High School, one of Kentucky's most storied football programs. During his time with the Bulldogs, he helped lead the team to the Kentucky State Championship and establish himself as one of the most dynamic playmakers in the state, finishing his high school career with over 2,800 rushing yards and 36 touchdowns. From there, his journey took him to Wake Forest University in North Carolina, where he built one of the most decorated careers in the history of the Demon Deacons football program. As a running back, he became the 2005 ACC Player of the Year and Offensive Player of the Year, earning first-team All-ACC honors twice and established himself as one of the most dominant players in the conference. By the time he graduated, his name was all over the Wake Forest record books. He finished his career at the school at eight different spots as a leader in major categories, including rushing yards with 4,032, scoring points with 240, rushing touchdowns and overall touchdowns with 40, all-purpose yards with 4,930, 200-yard rushing games, and 1,000-yard rushing seasons. After that, he was able to achieve his goal of playing in the National Football League with teams like the Cleveland Browns, the Tennessee Titans, the New Orleans Saints, and the Atlanta Falcons. He also played internationally and in other professional leagues. But his story doesn't stop there with just the playing. He's now transitioned into coaching and quickly built a reputation as one of the best developers of running backs in college football. His coaching journey has taken him to Wake Forest, William & Mary, Marshall, Western Kentucky, and Purdue, where he's produced elite rushing attack offenses. Today, he's finally back home where he belongs, and he's began serving as the running backs coach for the University of Louisville Cardinals football team, mentoring these young athletes and just kind of helping guide them through college football as one of the most exciting programs in the nation. So he's gone from state champion to Wake Forest, from the NFL to the coaching sidelines. Nowadays, he's just doing it all. So we got to actually dive into a little bit, but please help me welcome Coach Chris Barclay. Welcome, Chris. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right, Dwayne. How about yourself?
Oh, man, I'm doing good. I am blessed and honored to be here to sit down and talk with you, man. So, again, I just want to thank you for doing this. It means more to me than I could express. We've known each other since probably 1992. We kind of met back at First Baptist, and we kind of got a lot in common. I followed you through everything, watching you, supporting you, man, and I just really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're extremely busy. Just got back from your break, getting ready to start spring football. So appreciate you taking your time to do this, man.
No, anytime, Dwayne. Like I said, we go way back, man. It's my honor, my man.
All right, I appreciate you. So before we kind of get into all the different accomplishments and the stories and everything, one thing about this podcast, I always like to start at the beginning because the purpose of this is about the actual person, not just the player. We want to go past that. So as we set the table for anybody's listening, I know a lot of people know you from the highlights. They see you on the sidelines and the TVs. But again, tell me something that just kind of a lot of people may not know about you. What's kind of overall helped you get to where you're at today.
That's a good question. I think, really just the drive and the determination to overcome, whatever setbacks that may enter your way. I mean, I think that's kind of been my story is I've never really been, kind of the prototypical guy in the sense of, height, weight, size, speed ratio, things of these nature that some of those things that you might find attractive about a certain particular athlete. I was kind of one of those underdogs, you know what I mean? And so it was always a battle for me to overcome the odds and find a way to develop. I think is really, I would say, one word that I would say has been kind of following me throughout my career, both as a player and a coach, is develop. I was one of those guys that had to develop, and once I was able to do that and find a program where I was able to do that, I think that I was able to flourish in that environment, and now I think I see some of those same characteristics and traits where I am currently. So I would say develop for sure.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I remember watching you as a little kid at J-Town football, and I think maybe kind of where the game has gone now. I think maybe you players like you created that initial transfer portal. You went from J-Town over to Hikes Point. So I think, like you said, the development, that
Yeah.
to be not only just on Hikes Point, but a running back at Hikes Point, in youth football back in the 90s in Louisville, that was the top position. I agree with you. I think a lot of kids that come from, the Louisville area, we don't have a pro team there. So a lot of it has just come from development and just kind of trying to get the right opportunity for them. So, I appreciate that. All right. So, like I said, you came from the youth football world. You played at both J-Town and Hikes Point, both,
Mhm.
and then you were able to go on to Louisville Male. Again, a program with a huge tradition in winning. As a freshman, you immediately were thrown into the gauntlet. You're out there competing with athletes every day that are, and it's a state championship team. You
Mhm.
had some legendary teammates and some legendary coaches. What did being in that environment at such an early age help teach you, and how did that help you prepare for the rest of your career at Male, eventually winning a second state championship for the school?
Mm. Oh, okay. No, that's a really good one. I think, like you said, it was a very, very competitive environment my freshman year. I mean, just some of the names. I remember trying to be like Dewan Ditto. I mean, he was a heck of a back, and he wore number 28 at that time. And then I remember having to approach him and ask him once he was getting ready to depart, like, "Is it okay if I wear this 28, man?" And he was like,
Yeah.
"Absolutely." Michael Swain was a heck of a football player. I mean, just a two-way monster. You know what I mean? Garner Byers. You know what I mean? He was really the guy. You know what I mean? He had the size, he had the smarts, the versatility. Again, a two-way player. I mean, just so many. I could go on and on. I mean, uh, but I had like Jerry Aaron's was a quarterback. You know what I mean? Obviously, you had Montreal. I mean, there were so many great players to compete against back in that time that you really had to compete. You had to show up every day. You had to bring your hard hat and your lunch pail, and you had to go to work. And those are some of the things that I really took away from that time. Just how those great players and those elite athletes, a lot of which went on to play college football at various programs, they prepared the right way and they competed in practice. Practice was very competitive. It was a very competitive environment, especially at that time. Coach Bob Redman, hats off to him. Was my high school football coach, and he did a great job of just bringing talent into the program and getting us to all believe in one vision. And getting us to play as a team, and some of the talent that came out of that program and that was able to produce some state championships was incredible. And so, yeah, for sure, that environment, you had to show up every day. You had to really be detailed in what you did, and you had to compete. You had to scratch and claw for every rep because it was so competitive. And so I remember my freshman year, I was getting scraps, man. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, Dwayne, I was wearing number 24 because the Dwayne Ditto had number 28. Uh, I was wearing 24, and I remember I scored my very first high school touchdown. We were playing Iroquois at home, and it was late in the game. Most people gone home. It's probably like 30 seconds left in the game, and they were like, "Touchdown, Ronnie Netter." You know what I mean? Because Ronnie Netter he was a captain for us, and he wore number 24.
Uh,
And so I was doubled up. And it was just funny, man. I want to say in the newspaper the next day it said the same thing. It said touchdown Rodney Nutter, 30 seconds left,
Yeah.
and it was just neat, man. But it just the hard, just being able to see those guys compete every day and get after it. I really learned a lot from them about how to approach the game, how to prepare, and then how to be detailed while we get after it in practice. And I think that really built a championship culture, and it was fun to be a part of that.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned that. That's something that I also I want to get into as we kind of go through this. But you talk about like the practice atmosphere. That is, you guys are literally competing every day. And that's the amazing thing because as the phrase goes, iron sharpens iron.
Hmm.
The more you push yourself, the better your teammate's going to get. Because again, it's at Mayo. I went to J Town, but at Mayo, it's a competition. You guys are
Yeah.
racing.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna get that nod, and, if it ain't you, you still gotta be a good teammate, but, you get back to practice the next Monday, and, hey, that spot's up for grabs. I know you said you had guys like Jerry, but I know Coach Redmond wasn't giving anybody anything.
That's
You
right.
slack off, you gotta get that back on. You gotta get ready to perform again the next week.
That's right.
Uh, so that's awesome. But so now, like I said, you went to Mayo. As you know, I went to J Town. So a little bit of a different schools, but you kind of growing up, you always hear this term student athlete, right?
Hmm.
But every atmosphere really isn't that focused on both aspects of building the player.
Hmm.
We know several schools around the area that kind of favor some things or not, but Louisville Male is not one of those. So, being at a high school that places such strong emphasis on academics as well as the athletics. What did being in that environment teach you about kind of balancing the different responsibilities and just the overall importance of having an education because there is going to be a life after sports?
Oh, fantastic! I mean, there's no doubt that the curriculum at Mail, as rigorous as it was academically, it certainly prepared us for the next level for college. You had to understand time management, how to budget your time, and then be able to study multiple subjects within the same time structure as well. Like as far as in the evening, being ready for another six classes the next day of new information that you'd have to digest and be ready for a quiz or an exam or a project at some point. But also, I mean, at that time, I think they had they had started the portfolios
Mm,
back then. Well, they had the portfolios, and so
yeah,
there was always kind of a constant project
yeah.
that we're working on, and don't and so it was definitely rigorous, but I can appreciate just all that it taught us. I think they prepared myself for a program like Wake Forest, where the time would certainly be need to be budgeted the right way at an elite institution like that. I think that the people that I was able to attend school with, some of my students, fellow students, they were very sharp. I mean, you had to be on point in class. You wanted to go to class prepared so that you could chime in and have information and insight when you were speaking and when we were discussing different topics. So I think it was a great environment as far as teaching discipline, how to retain information, process information, how to take notes the right way, um, and then how to study those things so that you could prepare yourself for an examination and then apply those skills, some of those skills in life. I think that that environment really did a good job from the administration all the way through to, like I said, my fellow students I was able to go to school with, just preparing us for that next step. And I think you saw a lot of the graduates from Mail. I thought, at least wherever they attended, did fairly well in school. I mean, obviously, everybody has their things they deal with in adversity, but generally speaking, I think academically, there was a pretty good transition from the skills that were built during that time at Mail, as far as learning the self discipline and having to budget and allocate time correctly, and having to critical think in some things. I thought it really prepared us very well for the next level.
Yeah, and, again, my day was going really good when I knew I was gonna talk to you, but I didn't know you were gonna remind me about the portfolio, man. That thing, the personal narrative, the poem we had to write, I had forgotten completely about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, but again, another thing, like I said, I went to J-Town because as you described Mail, I would not have survived at Mail. I I would probably still be at Mail today trying to get my 30 credit hours or whatever we had to get back then.
Nah,
Uh,
man, nah, you was sharp, man. You was sharp. I know you was excelling over there at J Town. You definitely fun to watch on that court, man. But I know you did your thing, man. Shoot, I
man,
know where
I
you coming
I
from, bro.
I appreciate that, but I will tell you, and a lot of people laugh at me when I tell this story. My senior year, I had 4 PE classes.
Wow, wow, no doubt, no doubt. So yeah, you was getting a lot of practice in.
So, yeah, but,
That's what's up.
yeah, so no, so as we kinda progress through the careers and everything, like I said, you had a
Mhm.
very successful career at Mail, man. It was like I said, I had some and you mentioned guys, First Baptist guys, you mentioned Mike Swain, I enjoyed watching all of y'all, to play and everything. But from that, you then progressed on to college. So,
Mm.
I went through it with basketball, but tell me, and I know your experience was different than mine. Tell me about how your recruiting process went as you were getting ready to go from high school to college.
Yeah, it was interesting, Dwayne. I was one of the smaller guys, so it was really at that time, the year before me, you had two really big time prospects, and Montrell Jones, who was one of the best receivers, and then Marcus Green, who, excuse me, again, he was one of the top defensive tackles in the country at that time. For a while there, I think both of them were committed to the program down the street, as we say, in University
Mhm.
of Kentucky, and
The blue
uh,
brown.
I think obviously Marcus ended up going to Ohio State and then Montreal to Tennessee. But then right behind me, you had Mike Bush,
Yep.
who was the number one athlete in the country in
Mhm.
his class, and so there was a lot of attention, on the program at that time, and I was kind of able to benefit from some of that. But again, I was small. I was probably my senior year. I weighed no more than 165 pounds soaking wet. And so I got a lot of the, oh, you're too small, you're not quite big enough. And even I remember going down to the University of Louisville with my father and to sitting down with John L. Smith at that time. And he was just kind of looking all around the room, but was not able to commit a scholarship to me, and here I am, I had won state championships right in front of him and things like that. And so that was a very painful time for me, but I never had an offer from the University of Louisville. So every day when I go into work, man, it's there's a gratifying feeling in that. You know what I mean? Just being able to have an impact in that space that once upon a time I was not allowed to occupy. You know what I mean? For
Yeah.
whatever reason. And but no, so I had like Miami of Ohio. We got a guy on our staff named David Elston now. He was the head coach at Western Kentucky at the time when I was coming out of school. And he loves to remind me every day. He's like, man, I recruited the crap out of you, Chris. I thought you cut Western. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was the mid majors, bro. It was the Ohio, it was the Ball States, the Western Kentuckies. And I don't know, man. Dwayne. I was different, man. I was just, even though I was a small guy, I always had big dreams. I was always a big dreamer. I had big ambition, and I always saw myself on the biggest stage that I could be. You know what I'm saying? And so I didn't really pay those schools any much attention, man. I was like, yo, I'm P5, man. You know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
at that time, and so when Wake Forest finally came around, I did have an offer from Kentucky. I will say that, but they were in sanctions at the time, so they had limited scholarships available. So I'm going through all the way basically through my senior year, and I end up finally getting a phone call because I did like Boston College. I'm sorry, I did like Boston College. They were the first to offer me my Power Five scholarship. I went to camp up there in the summer, going into my senior year. They offered me Will Blackman and another guy who went to Syracuse, played running back. But by the time I tried to call a commit around my birthday, they were like, the numbers game, So I was like, I got caught up in the numbers. I couldn't commit, so they pushed me back. They were like, "Yeah, you can't come visit till January." I'm like, "Okay." So I'm like, "Man, that's the only P5 I had. Like, man, this kind of stinks." I did have interest in Northwestern. Went to visit them. I think I liked them a little bit more than they liked me, so it was kind of one of those things. So I was, but then, like I said, in December, I got a phone call from Dean Hood, uh, who he was my recruiting coach. He was the defense coordinator at Wake Forest at the time. Great man, offered me a scholarship to Wake Forest. I'm like, man, this is awesome. You know what I mean? I had heard of Wake Forest. All I knew about it was like Tim Duncan. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, okay, I didn't know where it was at, any of that. But I was just like, man, okay, this is like the ACC. I'm like, okay, this is big time. And, I almost teared up, man. I mean, this Dean Hood, man, he came down shortly after we had went to the playoffs. I believe we were getting ready to play in the state championship game the following week. And he came down, he sat on my couch, watched in front of my parents and I, and he looked us in the eye and he said, look, Chris, he said, I realize, you're not a very big guy. He said, but that doesn't scare us. He said, we think you're a good football player. And he said, personally, I think you could play cornerback in the ACC. I think you could play receiver in the ACC. He said, but personally, I'm looking at you. I think you're going to be an all ACC running back. And so when he said that, man, I mean, I almost tears came to my eyes, man. You know what I mean? And so at that point, I was like, well, coach, I'm ready to commit right now. You know what I mean? Like, y'all believe in me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so he was like, well, let's do this. Come on down after you win your state championship next week, and then we'll bring you down that following weekend, and you can commit to Coach Grove when you sit down with him and everything. So that's what I ended up doing, man. And then the rest was kind of history, man. But it was kind of a turbulent recruiting process for me, man. It wasn't much traction just because of my size. There were a lot of people scared of that. But I think it's ironic now. That my lead running back is what some would consider to be a smaller back. You know what I mean? Um, and shoot, the very first kid that I had get drafted when we got down here was Jawar Jordan. He was was considered to be a smaller back. He went for 1,200 plus yards. So I think like my perspective is different now. Like I'm not scared of size. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I look at it differently now. I look at heart. I look at the way you move. There's a lot of other elements and things to look at it. And I think you can appreciate that when you played that position and you've felt that disrespect. You know what I mean? Just that um, the not giving you a chance just based on things that are out of your control, size and things like that. Not any ability, but just size. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think you got to be able to coach it all, and I've been proud of myself to do that ever since.
Yeah, man. No, definitely proud of you. And you see a lot of, size, especially at the NFL level right now. You're seeing some of the quote unquote smaller guys make it. The
Hmm.
Kyron Williams. You got the guys. Kyler Murray got to the NFL. They were talking about how small he was. So it's
Hmm.
like you said, it's about the heart. It's about the skill and everything.
Hmm.
So kind of like I said, and I'm a what they call the mid-major guy. So tell me, because again, there's a lot of kids right now that are in your same footsteps. They're going through that same process. Maybe somebody comes, but then they kind of fall off. What was something that you use that kind of helped keep you motivated when you're going through this process, knowing what you want to do? You said like you said, you're a P5 guy in your mind.
Hmm.
And how were you able to keep yourself motivated throughout that process when you weren't getting the interest and everything that you wanted?
No, I mean that's a really good question. I think just the environment that I was in at Mail, just the guys that I was competing with every day in practice. Um, some of which were committed to some Power Four programs. Some were committed to some Group of Five. Some were committed to some FCS programs. And so I got to see them work every day. I got to see how they competed, how they approached, how they prepared themselves from practices to games, and saw the success translate. And so, I think that just continuing to work and compete with those guys, I think really pushed me because I knew that I was good enough to play at the same level as some of them. You know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
it was just a matter of being seen. And I knew that if we were on the same team, then certainly the eyeballs would be there. You know what I mean? I just had to just go out and do my thing and just keep playing and making plays and not trying to play outside myself, but just be effective in the tools that God gave me, and I knew that at some point, man, that the good Lord would place the right institution in my life, man, that believed in me. And for me, that was Wake Forest. And I think it's evidenced in the career that I was able to have in the end, that was exactly and indeed the place where I was supposed to be, because of the impact that I was able to leave there and the legacy left. And so, if there were ever questions about it initially, I think those questions got answered in the end. Um,
Most
and
definitely.
probably early on. I mean, my freshman year was really special at Wake Forest, and so just it was a great opportunity for myself to be able to uh, showcase for some smaller backs at that time that, hey, it's possible for us as well. Because my favorite player and my biggest inspiration as a player was Warwick Dunn. He was the
Mhm.
one who did it for me. He made it possible for me in my eyes. And so
Yeah.
when I saw that, and then he actually took me under his wing my senior year, as I went on to break his record, his rushing record in the ACC, and break obviously Wake Forest record. I mean, it was awesome to be able to establish that type of relationship with someone that I had so much regard for.
Yeah. No, and you talk about just kind of the relationships, that's amazing. I'm down in Florida now, so I hear Warwick Dunn stories all the time when we talk football.
Hmm.
But being somebody, who's kind of played this game at different levels, you've had a lot of different coaches along the way,
Hmm.
and you talk about the relationships, even though now you're into coaching. But kind of going through your career, you said high school, college, professional, overseas, international. How did you able to learn to handle coaching and criticism, especially when it gets tough? And of all of those levels, which level do you felt that was the hardest transition and learning experience that you had to go through?
Man, that's such a loaded question.
You have
Um,
to no names. You don't have to use any names.
yeah. No, I mean, so we're talking about coaching, or we're talking about playing.
So as a player, kind of
Hmm.
learning, because again, you get coaches are going to be hard on you, right?
Hmm.
So one
Hmm.
one thing that I see nowadays is kids, and not just kids, but parents of kids struggling to understand the difference between being coached or being yelled at.
Oh yeah.
And again, so you saw it as, as a teenager growing up through it, where again, I'm there.
Hmm.
Sometimes we're not able to differentiate the 2, and it's, "Oh, he hates me, he's against me." But then you go to college and professional, and you got coaches who, you know, food on their table depends on wins and losses, which is a direct reflection of your play on the field.
Hmm.
How were you able to just kinda understand that as saying, "Hey, I understand his criticism, is to help me get better and to help the team get better." What were you able to learn and navigate that realm?
Oh yeah, I mean it it's definitely a it's an interesting, realm to have to navigate. I think every coach is different. But it's important to know that there is a difference between yelling at a player, uh, or coaching them. You know what I mean? Coaching at them and coaching a player. I think that um, there's different types of coaches. Then they express themselves differently. And as a player, you've had many of them. I've had different ones. You kind of learn how to deal with their personalities, knowing that they're different. Um, and I think that's part of the journey. You know what I mean? As you go through the season, or you go through a preseason, you understand, you get to know and experience the ups and downs with this individual and how they handle adversity and how they handle success, and things like that. And I think I've been able to pick up some things, good, bad, and otherwise, as a player. Um, but I think it's important as a coach now that you're able to implement the good, eliminate the bad as best you can. And understand that, yes, while this new generation of kids is a little bit different, they're still similar, and I just spoke at Atherton High School at the coaches clinic, and I said the same thing. I said, even though these kids are different in many ways, they're still the same, and they still appreciate and they desire authenticity. You know what I mean? And so when you're real with them, and they know that you actually care about them, then I think that they're willing to do a lot more and accept more from you as far as input. and how deep you're able to dig with them as far as a coach.
Mm.
Um, how much access they give you, I think in large part depends on they need to feel that you care. You know what I mean? That there's a genuine this person cares about my welfare, my development as a player, um, and trying to develop me as a person off the field as well. And I think when they feel and understand that, then I think that really allows you to really dig into places where you some other coaches may not be able to get to.
Yeah.
And so my coaching hard may look differently than this next coach. You know what I mean? At times it may look the same, but I can accomplish both with my guys because I'm able to establish that relationship and that rapport with them, and they know that I care about them, so they know where it's coming from. It's not just coming from a place of, uh, you know, I'm pointing the finger at you. You didn't do this. This is more of, hey, you know, this is where we've got to fix the area, you know what I mean? Or this is how we can fix it, right? This is the issue and this is how it needs to be fixed. And knowing that we've worked on some of those things in the past so they can draw on some of those experiences and things like this. So they see the follow through from my end as a coach. So they know that the input and the effort is there to help, highlight some of those areas. So, I mean, I think it really, um, those things really matter as far as today's kids. They have to know that you care and they will allow you to dig into places and reach certain places to coach them um, if they know that first. But for sure, there's a difference in being yelled at and being coached and allowing yourself to be coached. Not always looking to have a rebuttal, but saying yes, sir, and taking the coaching and implementing those words. All right. Don't just let the words fall on deaf ears, but it's important for the player to allow those words to sink in and implement those things. And I think that's when you see growth a lot of times. And those are the things I think as coaches, we need to highlight those moments for them so that it makes it more tangible for them. Hey, you listened to what I told you, right? These coaching points. Now look at the success that you're experiencing as a result, right? So it's not that I have all the answers, but every now and then I'm in this to help you. You know what I mean? So I've done this a few times. If you listen, I think that you'll see and you'll experience the growth that you're looking for. And that's what we both desire for your career. And I think when it becomes that type of situation, I think as a coach, man, you kind of unlimited where you can take these kids.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. So kind of diving back into kind of the, the overall student athlete aspect of your time at Wake Forest. A lot of people say when you're a student athlete, it's a full-time job. And again, you're at a very academically demanding school in Wake Forest. And, football schedule it's a busy schedule, from individual instructions to position meetings to weight trainings to classes, everything. Again, they've always used the term it's a full-time job. But you also did something that touched me that I'm very proud of, and that was you managed to go through all of that, and you joined a fraternity. You didn't join a fraternity, you joined the fraternity, right? You were able to join a fraternity while you were going through all of that. So kind of tell me how that experience kind of you were able to manage everything to dealing with like your time management and everything, all the other different conflicting priorities that you had to go through at the time to let people know that, hey, there's time to do everything if you manage your time correctly.
Yeah, I think that's that was probably one of the biggest lessons learned because the interesting thing is I actually um, joined my fraternity. I journeyed into the fraternity during the fall. So this was during the football season.
During season.
Uh,
Yeah.
Correct. And so usually a lot of people try to do it in the spring where it's a little bit more time available. But I mean, like you said, I mean, this time management, I think it started back in my experience at Mayo High School, just learning how to budget and allocate time. That prepared me for the Wake. And then we had great resources at Wake Forest as far as helping us to acclimate to the academic environment there at Wake and learning how to budget that time. And then, obviously I was had some resources in my immediate family. My father, he went over back in his day in college. And so, he understood it as well. So I was kind of able to, talk to him a little bit about some things as far as allocating time. But, and then my line brothers, I mean, they were great. I mean, they all had things that they had going on as well at the time where there had to be some self-discipline and budgeting and allocating time the proper way. Now, obviously with me playing football, my time was a little bit different. There were some weekends where we would be on the road and things, where I'd have to. Remember being in my hotel room Friday night and obviously studying the game plan for the next day, but also going over
Studying
my
your
information.
information. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So obviously a lot of communication with my line brothers, just exchanging information the entire time, but just staying driven. You know what I mean? I think that's important to have goals. I think it's important to set goals, um, regardless where you are, where you start. I think it's important to set short term and long term goals. And I think when you have that type of mentality, then I think that you're willing to make the sacrifices, allocate your time accordingly, do whatever it takes to reach those goals. And I think that that was kind of an example. That time for me was an example of I had some goals in mind that I wanted to set, and ironically, Dwayne, that was my best statistical season was my sophomore season. The game were right after we had were presented to the to the campus. Right after we came out, we played Maryland at home. That was our final game. It was a Thanksgiving Day game, and that was the best game of my career. Man, I had 243 yards and 3 touchdowns. And unfortunately in the loss, but it was one of the things. I think they called it the track meet because the other running
Mhm.
back, Bruce Perry, he had like 255 yards and 3 touchdowns. So it was a
Racing up
great
and down the field.
it was the track meet. That's what they call it. And so,
Yeah.
a lot of big runs and things like that. But no, that was the best game of my career, and that was the best season of my career, man. So it definitely taught me a lot about myself, at budgeting time and how important that is, just in life, in everyday life.
Yeah. Again, I'm right there with you. I understand it a lot more than a lot of other people will, you know. So
Hmm.
so as you kind of, you're now into the coaching world, right? But we've talked about you've done this at every level. How do you compare the different practices that you went through from like at a male high school, which again is a high level high school practice, into
Hmm.
Wake Forest, which again is a high level practice, to to the National Football League? As
Hmm.
far as things like your intensity, the expectations at each stage, what are some of the, I guess, would you say are some of the similarities or some of the differences? Because again, I'm now getting into coaching,
Hmm.
and one thing we're struggling with is trying to convince our kids that, hey, you say you want to go to this level, but
Hmm.
you're half going through drills. You guys are play fighting and arm fighting when you're in the back of lines waiting for your turn. So I guess how do you see those differences between just the preparation and everything that goes into those kind of practices at different levels?
Yeah, I mean that's for sure. I mean, I think that you definitely notice differences from the high school level to the collegiate level, and then to the National Football League level. Um, I'm trying to think of some of the similarities first. I mean, I just think,
It's okay if there's none.
you know what I mean? Like, I mean, just I think that there is I would say this. I think that universally there is a love and a passion for our game,
Mhm.
for the sport. That regardless what age, even Aaron Rodgers when he hits the field is still excited on the first day. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? To put the cleats on and the smell of the fresh cut grass and things. I think that's universal. I think that there's an excitement even in week 15. You know what I mean? Like of just being able to play the game that we all love and cherish. um, and I think that there's obviously competitiveness within each level, each group. They're all going to be competitive, but now the obviously the intensity changes, um, each level. I tell the guys all the time. I tell my players all the time. I said like it's Friday night. Your Friday night speed, what you played on Friday night, that's practice at this level. That's how you need to practice every day at this level. And
Mhm.
then, as we know, there's a different game speed on Saturday. You play at a different speed on Saturday than you do all week. Probably you shouldn't, but there is a difference of speed. So then that speed, that game day speed in college, is now practice speed in the NFL. That's how you
Mhm.
need to move to be efficient in practice in the NFL. Then on game day on Sunday, that's a different speed, right? So you have to be able to adjust to all those different gears. I think is the ones that are the ones that really can excel at the elite level. But the intensity of practice for sure, just from, like you said, the attention to detail. How frequently do you need to explain drills? There's more information disseminated at the collegiate level in meetings that you're going to need to retain and then go out and implement in practice. Same can be said at the NFL. I mean, there's more meeting time than you're actually on the field. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of information that's disseminated, and you need to be able to translate that information to the field and move around and be efficient while you do so. And so the league's just too competitive for those that can't function in those environments. You know what I mean? And so um, I think that Mail was competitive, and it certainly prepared me for Wake Forest. I thought that Wake was a competitive environment as well. The hardest thing about Wake was it was so competitive academically. You know what I mean? Um, that was a little bit different than I think maybe that I anticipate. You know what I mean? Like I really, really had to buckle down at Wake just because I mean it was very, very challenging academically. But I mean, for all the way to the NFL, bro. I mean, that's really I think those things highlight the most. I mean, the intensity. You don't have to explain as much in the NFL. I mean, it's you can say it one time and it's done. I mean, those guys are professionals. This is what we do for a living. In college, it's pretty proficient. You know what I mean? And now with the transfer portal and all these things, it's almost become like the NFL. You know what I mean? Like you can make roster movement. There's roster
Mhm.
changes if if there's too many challenges for some positions and things like that. So it gets interesting. Unfortunately, you still wish there was the development piece at college like you we all desired and want like we had back in the day. I've been kind of fortunate to be able to have some guys have stuck around for 2 and 3 and 4 years now.
Mhm.
So that's been a blessing. I like stability. You know what I mean? I'm a fan of that. I function best in those environments with those type of situations. And that's different in this day and age of the transfer portal and the NIL. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go over there. To be able to retain is a key piece to success, I think, in today's college football. Uh, but at the same time, I'm also, this it's an ever changing environment,
Yeah.
and you have to be willing to adjust to all the changes at this level, and how that affects and impacts these kids and how they what they're looking for. You know what I mean? So that's the biggest change I would think from high school to college is like that's a big piece. So that changes the whole landscape for those kids. So the it changes the practice as well. You know what I mean? You do have some of these kids that get this money, and like you said, I mean they sluggish. They don't want to work. They don't want to do anything. And you just like wow, like you know what I mean? Like how do you anticipate making it at another level if you don't work at this level? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and so the insertion of all this money that's coming to college football, I think it's made this landscape very challenging for these collegiate athletes. And I'm interested to see how they transition. And we're seeing it within the last 2 or 3 drafts of how those young men are transitioning to the NFL, some of which are taking pay cuts in certain situations.
Right. Yeah, because we
So
really haven't seen this generation of, full NIL guys actually make it to the professional level. So, I never
correct.
thought about it, but I will tell you this much, and you again, I wanted you to come on my podcast because I love you, I respect you, but the
Mhm.
answer that you just gave me, I'm going to cut out, and I'm gonna cut it out, and I'm gonna play that to my high school kids. I want them
Mhm.
to understand you, like you said, the Friday speed that you're used to playing in high school is your practice speed when you get to the next level. And then
Yep.
your game speed is playing at that next level is your practice speed at the professional level. And I think
Mhm.
just that answer is something that I definitely want to make sure that they hear. So, so I appreciate you, you sharing that information.
Oh, no
But
problem.
so like I said, as you've transitioned into coaching, well, we've talked about it. Your resume speaks for itself. You are nothing but a Google search away of having extreme credibility to anybody that you open your mouth to, right? So,
Mhm.
and that's something that, I've always believed in listening to people who are or have been where it is I want to go.
Mhm.
We come from Louisville, so we had college athletes. It wouldn't be nothing for us to see a U of L player, or we had older professional guys who would come back, and the thing about Louisville is those people would love to talk to the youth. So but nowadays, you got that. um what are some of those lessons, that life lessons, that you make sure that you pass on to your players now, that you feel
Mm.
are important enough, that need to be able to be continued to be told?
Mm. Okay. No, that's a good one. I think really I don't try to enforce it, but I do present the faith to them. I think we do have a verse of the week each week in our room. And it rotates who's responsible for it. So I might have it this week, then Isaac might have it next week, and then Keywan may have it the week after that, and then so on and so forth. Braxton Jennings after that. I mean, we'll see. And so whatever's on their heart, whatever's on their mind, they bring the verse and why they tell us why they chose it. And we talk about it. We have, like, a 4 to 5 minute discussion about this verse and what do we see in this verse. I think that's important while we're going through this football journey, to also give them a foundation as well if they don't have it. Many of which don't when they come to us. And I actually, for ironically, I went by them right before we went on the break at one of our winter workouts, and I just asked Isaac and Bama, Keywan, what's the favorite part about me coaching them? And they were like, Isaac was like, you're funny, coach. It's just a lot of stuff you say. But then Keywan was like, I mean, he's like, coach, honestly, like the verse of the week. You know what I mean? Just because, like, we need that. Like, we don't ever really get that word. You know what I mean? Like that foundation. And so that's really critical, and we appreciate that. And so that was really it really hit home for me. So I mean, I really try to help them with their faith. I think it's just being developing people again. I think, look, it goes back to the development piece. That's a personal piece for me that's really I've taken pride in over my career. I've been able to my very first draft pick. He signed with us at Purdue University. He was a 6'2", 235-pound white kid that all he had was Marion University. He walked on for us. He became a core special team starter, became our starting fullback, then became the starting running back. Led the Big Ten forced missed tackles in 2020. He became the first draft pick up there at Purdue in 20 years. Um, and then, like, I had, like, had another kid that was developed up there that walked on into becoming a really good player. Then the two kids we had get drafted in 2023. The first time that we had this program, University of Louisville, had two kids drafted since Mike Bush and Kobe Smith got drafted in 2000, I believe it's 2006, 2005, 2006. And so, just the development piece, I've been able to really take different types of young men and develop them. I think it's important that in life, they understand that it's important for themselves to develop um, from young people to mature young men.
Mhm.
Uh, and in that process, hey, help some young men develop. Somebody back at your high school, you pour into them just the same way I poured into you, hopefully. So I think that development piece, the faith piece, I think those things are critical. And then just being a man of integrity. Just keep your nose clean. You know what I mean? Try to do things the right way. Is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not. I mean, Lord knows I've fallen short many times. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
we're
But
human.
right, but at least strive, try. I try to have them around my family. You know what I mean? So they see an environment that hopefully. I know for a fact that some of them have never seen. They've never
Mhm.
seen a mother and father interact in a good and healthy way. You know what I mean? Uh, to see them interact with their children, little ones. For some of them, that's brand new. You know what I mean? So just opening their perspective and showing them possibilities of life and what it can be and what it should be. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, uh, you know, that those things I think are just things I think that foundational pieces that I think I try to import on all my players. I think those things carry and stand the test of time.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I know you mentioned just kind of the NIL and the transfer portal. So again, you're a college football coach. You're out there recruiting some of the top talent to come to one of the top schools just in the nation. So
Mhm.
what are some of the things that kind of you look for? Not necessarily like performance, not looking for stats. What are some of the non-performance qualities you look for when you're out evaluating talent and recruiting players?
Um, competitiveness. That's kind of one of the things that you kind of have to see it practice. You can see it in a game, but you really rather see practice just to see, how does he enjoy practicing? Because if he enjoys practicing, then he loves to play.
Hmm.
Uh, competitiveness, you love the work ethic. Um, if you can see him work out, you can see his urgency to the rack or to whatever the lift is, to whatever the sprint is. Is he in the front of the line? Is he in the back of the line? What's his demeanor like? Body language? How does he approach um, the task? Whatever the drill is. Um, I think those things are critical. Those things you want to really try to evaluate. Like you said, if you're not looking at specific movement and things like that, you just want to know about the work ethic. You want to know about the competitiveness. You want to know about, is he tough? Is he tough minded? How does he learn? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, um, because I think that you need to understand there's different types of learners. There's visual and then there's physical. Like some people need to be moved around and then they learn that way as they move their body through things. Others, you can draw it up on the board. Um, and so that again goes back to the development piece. In order for me to teach him, I need to know how he learns best. Uh, and then is he tough? I mean, is he always in the training room? I can ask those questions, real quickly and find out information because then that will tell you how reliable that young man is. Is he reliable? Is he not? That those things matter. Because I got mouths to feed, man. You know what I mean? And I'm looking
Yeah.
for a reliable guy that can be consistent. So those are some of the traits for sure that I would definitely look into without trying to get too much into the physical aspect of it.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I understand, those are things that even at, younger levels, people need to start thinking about. Parents need to
Mhm.
start thinking about what am I grooming my kid for? So,
Mhm.
all righty. So I want to, like I said, I wanted to kind of dive into it again. I know a lot of your story, but today I wanted to get into it and picking your brain. I've learned some things. So I appreciate that. I've got some things that I want to pull out and share with the kids that I'm mentoring and training and developing, because I think it hits differently when it comes from somebody else, as opposed to the voice they always hear. So you have definitely hit home runs with a lot of everything. But want to kind of speed things up a little bit for you here. So we're gonna do some rapid fire questions. Just give them out to you. I'm gonna give you two options. You tell me just quick what first answer that comes to mind. You tell me, no explanations. Don't overthink it. Only rule I have is you just can't say both. All right. So you got to
Okay.
pick one and then you got to live with it. Okay.
All
All
right.
right. So take a deep breath. We'll jump in really quick. So, Friday night lights or Saturday game day?
Oh man, Saturday game day.
Saturday game day. All right. Big
Yeah.
run, or would you rather juke somebody?
Uh, I think a big run.
Okay.
Mhm.
So now we all know running backs, you guys would prefer perfect conditions, but if you had to pick snow or rain.
Oh, wow.
And
And
in this
neither's
case, I know I
happening.
said you can't say both, you can't say neither.
Oh man, snow or rain. I would probably say I really despise the cold weather, but I think if it's like drizzling,
Yeah. A sprinkle,
uh,
a sprinkle,
a sprinkle, a
a
sprinkle.
sprinkle.
Yeah, I think I could probably do that.
Alrighty. Now, one big aspect that our generation didn't necessarily have, but this generation now has with services like Huddle and all these different camera phones and these recording setups that everybody have. We didn't necessarily have the ability to watch our film, but but again, as you get to college, you get those opportunities. And now that you're in coaching, do you find it more beneficial for yourself or your players to watch your own film or to watch film of your opponents?
Mm. Um, depend. I think is this when I have to choose one or the other
One
still?
or the other.
Okay. And you said, do I find it more beneficial for myself?
For yourself or your players now that you're coaching, do you find it more beneficial to dissect your own habits or does it dissect your opponent's habits?
I think for our sake, I think it's better for us to dissect our own habits. Before for us to get better, it's not so much about what they're doing. I have to know what I'm doing first, and where I can be better. Uh,
Yeah.
for me to be in those situations, to be successful moving forward. So, like, I think it's probably more beneficial for us to study ourselves first, and then the opponent after that.
Okay. Awesome. So
Hmm.
now, like I said, you've got a great legacy as a player. You've got a great legacy as a coach already that's going to continue to build. So again, no wrong answer. Nobody, just we're just looking at you. Do you value more your legacy as a player or your legacy as a coach?
Mm.
Again, both are great. So not taking
It,
anything from either one of them, but
I would say since my playing career is over with, then that it's now about my coaching career. Like that's my passion now. You
okay.
know, it's like that same drive is entered into the whistle, so to speak.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I just have the just this drive to create as many and help develop as many elite running backs as I can possibly develop. And then if God allows me to be in another position, coach another position, then I welcome that as well. You know what I mean? I'm a football coach. I'm a
Yeah.
developer of talent, and so I'm just excited to this about coaching and developing these young men.
Yeah. So,
Hmm.
now again, I know kind of the way things are going on the college basketball landscape. There's all kind of things. So you talked about you're in coaching now. Any potential you can get back? You got any more eligibility left? Because people are going to the NBA and coming back and playing nowadays.
I know, right?
I still have 4 years of football eligibility, but I'm not going to use those.
I'm saying, man, it's definitely an interesting landscape
Yeah.
in college basketball
Yeah.
with the ability to go to the developmental league and then come on back to college. That's pretty.
Yeah.
It's definitely makes it interesting.
It's scary and crazy. So, all right, last little ones. We're gonna think about this. I want to play this game I made up. It's called Fourth Down. All right. So now
Okay.
I know you're an offensive guy, but you got fourth down. Your options are you can kick the field goal,
Hmm.
kind of get the just take the guaranteed points. You can
Hmm.
go for it, you
Hmm.
know, and which is what what you want to highlight. This is what I want to keep. I want to go for it to keep the ball, or I
Hmm.
want to just kick the field goal. We'll just move forward with progress, or I can punt. I want to get rid of this and never think about this option again. All right.
Hmm.
So, kick the field goal, go for it, or punt it. Your first carry in high school, your first carry in college, or your first carry in the NFL.
Wow.
Knowing your first was I think your first touchdown was a special teams touchdown in the NFL, right?
I
Was
think
it
it
punt
was.
return? Yeah.
It was. Yeah, it was a kick return. It was a kick
Yeah.
return. Yep, against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
First carry. Which one are you hanging on to? Which one are we celebrating and which one are we getting rid of?
um, because my first carry in college probably was unceremonious. Really, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I probably would punt that one. Um, I would definitely. Uh, I want to say my first touch in the NFL would have been was it the kick return? It might have been the kick return.
Yeah.
So I probably have to go for it on that one, and and then I'd have to just
Kick the field goal.
kick the field goal on the because I think my
Man.
first what's name was a touchdown against Iroquois in high school.
All right.
Hmm.
So yeah, like I said, wanted to just have a little bit of fun with the career, man. Again, like I said, I've really enjoyed, watching everything you go. I said we go back to our First Baptist days, but I don't even know if you remember. We even go back to J-Town Optimist basketball days.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we talk about it all the time.
I distinctly remember again, you were playing and you had a light blue was back when we had the T-shirts. You
Yep.
were on the light blue team. We played you opening game of the season, and I had
Yep.
my all-time career high against your team. I had 31.
Yep.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
again, just, overall great athlete, man, able to do a lot of different things. So, we'll get to wrapping up today really quick, but I do have to thank my sponsors and everything because again, without them, this is not possible.
Mhm.
This episode is proudly sponsored by UA Rise Flag Football of Central Florida. UA Rise Flag Football is helping grow the game by giving young athletes a place to learn, compete, and develop their skills in a fun, structured, and competitive environment. As part of the National Under Armour Rise Flag Football program, the league focuses on teaching fundamentals of the game while emphasizing teamwork, leadership, and sportsmanship. For many young athletes, UA Rise Flag Football serves as an introduction to the sport, creating opportunities to build confidence, stay active, and learn life lessons that sports can teach them both on and off the field. Whether your child is stepping onto the field for the very first time or looking to take their game to the next level, UA Rise Flag Football of Central Florida provides a supportive environment where athletes can grow, compete, and have fun. Leagues are available for multiple age groups, giving girls and boys the opportunity to experience the game, develop their skills, and be a part of a team. To learn more or register for the upcoming season, visit UA Rise Flag Football of Central Florida to see how they're helping shape the next generation of athletes. And we want to thank them for supporting this episode of the podcast. All right, CB, man. Again, I really appreciate you for taking the time. I know you're enjoying your quick break with the family and everything. So again, I want to thank my episode sponsor, UA Rise Flag Football of Central Florida, and again, just thank you again for coming out here, Chris, and taking the time to sit down with us and share all the stories, man. It was good to look back at everything and just kind of remember just those two little kids that were running around First Baptist Church at J Town with dreams and everything, and here we go sitting at it. That's probably what, 1992, 93, and
Yeah.
now here we are in 2026 still, in each other's lives and able to look back at those different memories that we have. So before we close out, I want to give you the opportunity to share anything with the audience that you have that you want to let them know about you, whether it's upcoming spring games or the upcoming season, anything that you have, projects you're working on. I just want to give you the opportunity to say thank you for doing this for me. Just give you a chance to come out here and take the floor. So the floor is yours, sir.
Oh, no, Dwayne, I certainly appreciate this platform, man. This is fantastic. You guys are doing an awesome job, and certainly proud of everything that you're doing. Like you said, we go way back. We've got history, and certainly grateful for that history, and the things that we've been able to share coming up. Certainly encourage everybody to come out to some games this fall. We've got a very competitive schedule at the University of Louisville. We open up September 6th on Sunday night, 7:30 against Ole Miss down in Nashville. So that'll be a classic matchup right there. We're looking forward to, and then obviously a very competitive schedule all the way through. Uh, Encourage everybody to come out, come check us out. We're really excited about this team, this collection of players, this coaching staff. We really feel good about where we are as a program. I know Coach Brown's done a really good job of assembling staff and the collection of talent. So certainly come on out. Fans base has been awesome since we've been here, and we appreciate all the support. And look forward to seeing you guys this fall. Go Cars!
Yeah, man. I know you guys travel very well. So that game in Nashville, I assume to be a lot of red. I remember when some guys you played with, Mike Moore, Chris Weaver, and Vincent Weaver, we got a group message because we all grew up in the same neighborhood. When that Mississippi game was announced, I think
Mhm.
they were trying to get on and buy tickets already. So I wish you luck. I'll be watching as always. I love you, my brother. I appreciate everything. And just kind of as we go through here, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to spend a little bit of their day with us, listening to just two old guys share some old war stories and everything. But if you enjoyed today's episode, or if you made it all the way through this far, make sure you give us a like, subscribe to the podcast and everything. Again, we're on Amazon, we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Anywhere that we have opportunity to tell a story, we're going to be there. And then if you just got through here and you enjoyed the story, or you felt that this story there's somebody in your life that needs to hear it, we ask you share it with them. And then if you just know somebody who likes sports or storytelling, we ask you share it with them. That's kind of how we're going to continue to grow this platform. So again, for more information, you can also visit the website www.btgms.com. Beyond the Game, more stories. Go on there for more content and just official merchandise. So again, as we close today, I'm your host, Dwayne Lightfoot Jr. I appreciate you, my brother, Mr. Coach Chris Barclay, for coming on here and sharing with us, you said, your stories and just kind of everything you've got going on. And just remember that as the game ends, the lessons don't, and they last a lifetime. So until next time, we'll see you beyond the game.
Bye.